Two paramedics convicted in the death of Elijah McClain will be retried. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kim Christensen.
And I'm Phil Lipoff. McClain died back in 2019. Police stopped him even though he had done nothing wrong. The Colorado Court of Appeals today reversed convictions of criminally negligent homicide for former paramedics Peter Chikuniak and Jeremy Cooper. 9 News reporter Mark Salinger is live in Aurora with how the decision impacts the case. Mark?
Yeah, Aurora police stopped McClain as he was walking home from a convenience store, threw him to the ground, and then restrained him while paramedics injected him with ketamine. McClain had done nothing wrong and was unarmed. Now those paramedics will be retried. Cooper was sentenced to 14 months of work release. Chikuniak was sentenced to 5 years for a second-degree assault charge, which was then reduced to probation. That conviction was not overturned today. However, the appeals court ruled that the appeals court ruling states that the trial judge gave jurors incorrect instructions and that they should have provided additional guidance on how to apply legal standards.
As of this point, nothing is final. Cooper is no longer convicted, but he does face retrial on criminally negligent homicide. And Chikuniak remains convicted of second-degree assault unless the Supreme Court steps in and rules that that conviction, too, must be reversed on some basis.
Elijah McClain's death was a flashpoint for the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests. Many of those protests were held right here in front of the Aurora Municipal Center. They were chanting things like justice for Elijah McClain. Today, 2 of those convictions that they had fought for were reversed. Live in Aurora, I'm Mark Salinger, 9 News.
Yeah, many of us remember those days. And Mark, this still was a long time ago, and the trials themselves took a long time. So to think you have to revisit this again, it's going to be a lot.
7 years since the death of Elijah McClain to right now. He died in August of 2019, a long road for everybody involved.
All right, thank you, Mark Salinger, reporting. The decision to retry Cooper and Chikuniak is drawing some strong reaction from community activists and friends of the McClain family.
Today, we spoke with Midian Holmes. She's been supporting the McClain family since Elijah's death, being at their side, showing up nearly every court hearing that was had. She says this decision is just reopening a wound that will likely never heal.
We don't understand why this is necessary. It was very unwarranted, and it is signaling that this system has deemed Elijah McClain unworthy.
Our Ria Jha spoke with her, with Holmes, about the decision to retry the former paramedics, and she's going to bring us more of that one-on-one conversation coming up tonight on 9 News at 9 and 10.
Despite the recent rain, the entire state is officially under a drought emergency. Democratic Governor Jared Polis made the announcement earlier and activated Phase 3 of Colorado's drought response plan. Here is a look at the most recent map from the U.S. Drought Monitor. As you can see, most of the state is in red and orange, which is severe or extreme drought. It comes after the state experienced a record warm winter and below average snowfall.
Yeah, you don't need to be a meteorologist to read that map. It's very, very clear. But we do bring in meteorologist Kathy Sabin, because Kathy, tomorrow could be, what, our first 90-degree day?
Yes, and if not tomorrow, Phil, definitely over the weekend. But we're also talking about the potential for record high temperatures, dry conditions, and fire danger. So it's disappointing to see such a little impact after that extremely wet May that we just came out of on the drought monitor. But maybe things are starting to change and shift for us just a little bit. So today, highs in the upper 80s, kind of a mix of clouds and sunshine. A downsloping effect out of the wind is taking a lot of the water away from developing storms. But this area of the state, we're concerned about isolated severe storms with hail and damaging wind, and we're seeing a little bit of activity on that I-76 corridor and a lot of lightning and rain to impact travelers from Fort Morgan to Sterling, Julesburg, Holyoke out to the North Platte area. Nothing severe yet, but just know that's the area of the state that we are watching for impactful storms tonight. Elsewhere, relatively quiet. I don't know that Denver's going to see much of anything other than maybe a little bit of wind tonight. We have a kickoff of a warming and drying trend tomorrow that'll get us close to 90 tomorrow and then into the 90s over the weekend. We're going to break down that extended forecast for you and check the radar again in just a bit.
Kathy, thank you. There is still no date set to reopen the Montbello Rec Center 2 weeks after a deadly shooting took place there and forced its closure. The rec center closed after a 14-year-old boy was shot and killed. A 15-year-old is being charged in connection with his death. Since then, all programs have been closed and there's no timetable on when it will reopen. The rec center is in Denver Councilwoman Stacey Gilmore's district. She says there has been little communication from the city on when it will reopen. She stresses that the center's closure will hurt kids who depend on it when they're out on summer break. And that is something echoed by Councilwoman Chantel Lewis.
And there is summer programming that many folks depend on at that recreation center specifically. And so what we're looking to do is before we open, let's be intentional about how we set the foundation for healing and as we go forward.
City leaders are holding a healing event this Sunday to prepare the community for a future reopening. We also reached out to Denver Parks and Rec asking when they expect to open the center. We have not heard back.
A woman has been charged in connection to her 16-year-old daughter's death after investigators say she fueled the girl's alcoholism. 55-year-old Gretchen Ryan was charged with second-degree murder in the death of her daughter, Grace. The teen died in early March at the family's home in Arvada. Investigators found nearly 200 empty bottles of alcohol hidden in the girl's room and found that her mother would regularly get alcohol delivered to the house. Prosecutors say Gretchen would conceal the girl's alcohol use from her father. They also say she and her daughter would often drink and use marijuana together. Prosecutors say the girl's health suffered in the months prior to her death, but Ryan did not seek help. An autopsy found that the teen had an abnormally fatty liver, which is rare for someone her age.
The Justice Department has moved to challenge Colorado's U-Visa law. Congress created the law in 2020 to protect victims of domestic violence and trafficking. Governor Polis signed Colorado's version in 2021. It was designed to create uniformity and fairness for victims of crimes who are not U.S. citizens. The DOJ argues that Colorado's law conflicts with federal immigration rules by broadening who qualifies for the law enforcement certifications used in the applications.